I am allowed to read this to you because David is now dead, and throughout these pages, he makes regular pleas that if this book should ever be found, it will act as his last words, his will, and his memoir, if you prefer to count it as such. David is a man that is now, post-mortem, known to many as a psychopath, and a psychopath he clearly was. But if you were to ask his friends, family, or really anybody who knew him at all, there is never a consistent answer to why he did what he did. Well, until now. January 2nd, 2011. I've done what they asked. They are dead. I don't want to be like this anymore. They promised me they would shut up, but now there's so many more, and I can't sleep. I give them what they want, and they just keep asking for more. God, please forgive me. I was the first officer on call to a distressed woman complaining about the odor that had plagued her upstairs neighbor's apartments. Apartment 203, or as it's now known as colloquially, is Psycho Kent's place. Not the most creative use of his name, but it gets the point across and scares the kids away. Now, why this woman was the only person in the entire building to complain is a mystery to me. Without stepping as much as a few feet into the landing, the smell was pungent enough to make your eyes water, and it doesn't take a long-serving officer like myself to recognize the stench of a rotten body. Or bodies, I should say. January 3rd, 2011. Silence is what I crave most. I can't think right, I can't feel right. While they shout at me, they laugh at me, they stare at me, they get underneath my skin and into my brain, and they make me feel like what I'm doing is normal. But it's not normal. It's not normal. It's really not normal. I know this, but I can't stop. Oh God, please, someone please forgive me. I had planned to knock before kicking, but as I approached apartment 203, it was very clear there were signs of a struggle that had happened by the entrance of the door. Blood on the exterior of the rims and smeared against the wood, scratch marks all across the bottom and up the sides, like a dog had attempted to scratch its way in. And the lock and handle had been, well, completely busted. If you could envision the replay of events that should have taken place based on what I was seeing, you would have made a solid bet to anyone that there had been one hell of a scrape on that second floor. But most interesting to me was the evidence that came the next day, explaining that all of this had been done by only one man, David Kent. January 4th, 2011. It hurts to be awake. It hurts to be awake. It hurts to be awake. In light of the interesting twist that had developed from what I had expected to see to what I actually did see, I chose to enter his home without invitation. Is anyone home? I coughed and muffled through the arm of my jacket. But there was no reply. The corridor was littered with empty cans and torn plastic bags. I peered my head into the first room, which was on the left, and happened to be the kitchen, and found myself interrupting the feast of two sickly thin cats downing on a smaller dead kitten. One looked up to me and meowed, and the other just didn't stop. I continued onward through the hall to where I stopped and turned into the first room on the right, bedroom. From what I could understand at the time, it was, though this room had never been used for sleeping, but more so to ditch, to hoard, and to use as a toilet. To me, it was also where I expected to find the putrid decomposition, but to no avail. January 5th, 2011. I couldn't sleep last night. The screams are too loud and they are terrifying me so much, but I can't leave. They won't allow me to leave. I haven't had food in days because they said it would be poison. The water is fine, as long as I drink from the toilet, they said. So I had to find somewhere else to go, but as a small joy in my life, my cat, Molly, has recently given birth to a beautiful ginger kitten, which I named Lily. I am allowed to eat her. I will do that tomorrow. Oh, please forgive me. I returned to the hall and faced the final room, which stood directly forward from the entrance, the only door in the house that was completely shut. I approached with caution, of course, and felt an urge to lightly press my ear against the wood. From inside, I swear, I heard the murmurings of a group in mid-conversation. I listened so intently so I could hear, but there was no coherent word that was ever spoken. It was like it sounded like it was another language. It sounded familiar in a way, but like vocal static. Bracing myself for what would appear to me on the other side of this door, I flung the door wide open and took a courageous leap forward with my shoulders leaned forward and mouth agape ready to speak. January 6th, 2011. They have asked me to do something that I simply can't. The body of a child is beyond my capabilities, as well as a person. No matter how insane the others think I am a good man. At least, I used to be. They just don't allow me to show it. Well, tonight I show them I am no longer a slave. Tonight, they are not getting what they want. Whatever happens, please, forgive me. Now fully inside the room, the sights of horror that presented themselves before my eyes are those that only I know in its entire satanic glory. For imagination alone does not do this justice. A sea of decomposing and charred bodies propped upright, sitting to face the western wall. Bald heads with a whisper of burnt hair joined to a mismatched jigsaw of broken limbs and skin. They are all squashed side by side with their heads turned in unison. Several of them placed on the chairs and the couch, but most sat on the floor. It was like they were in children's school. All the faces of hard-fought and messy death, and all facing one main focal point in the room. The swinging body of David Kent. As I edged closer to the suicidal theater that was on display, holding my breath that I shouldn't touch a single zombified body and precariously dancing my way between monstrous, appalling forms of human bodies, I noticed an etching in the stomach of the shirtless man hovering above the stool. I cannot do what you asked me to, but I hope this will be enough. The sacrificial last words of a man driven to a cruel demise through the torture of his own mind, and the final scene of his life painted with such insanity that it bled through his words on paper. It was enough that made me question my own mental well-being as I turned to leave the premise. Because as I began to leave, to make a hysteric and unbelievable phone call to my superior, I could have sworn that there wasn't a body facing me when I walked in. January 6th, 2011. This will be my last word. I'm going to do it. I just hope whoever finds this will understand. And I hope they do not curse the reader with this same affliction. But if you're reading this and start to hear sounds in the middle of the night, if you, the reader, start to hear voices call your name and you don't know where, and if the voices get so deafening that your loudest screams can't drown them out, please forgive me. Well, that was pretty spooky, wasn't it? Anyway, thank you for making it this far into the video, and if you wouldn't mind, a like and a subscribe would definitely help out as well. Oh, and before you go, if you're ever thinking on taking on roommates, make sure they're among the living.